Welcome to the SARE Ladies podcast. This is where Asian American Pacific Islander women carve out their own space in real estate and shake up the status quo. Join your hosts, Anita Wong and Ashley Cow, as they dive deep into bold strategies, personal growth, and everything it takes to own it. From building wealth to boosting confidence. Let's jump in.
Welcome, friends, to the SARE Ladies podcast, where we break down real estate, wealth building, and what it actually takes for AAPI women to play at a higher level. I'm Anita, and I'm with my co-host, Ashley Cow. Say hi, Ashley.
Hello.
So today's conversation matters because we've all heard about the silver tsunami, where there's 10,000 Americans turning 65 every day. At this point, we are already at 61 million Americans that have aged at that age, and 70% of those people will need long-term care at some point. So the US needs about 600,000 to about 1 million new senior housing units by 2030. And currently, development has slowed and supply is in lagging demand. And so enter real estate investors because this is what makes it attractive. So there's demographic certainty, supply constraints, needs-based demand, and potential for above-average returns. And you've all heard the story. I have someone, a grandparent that needs to go in assisted living, and everyone is sticker shocked by how much money it takes to have a bit of care for their loved ones. And this is a really hard job, right? So most people that have tried assisted living, it is hard to get into because there is. It's very intense operationally. There's labor shortages, there's regulation and compliance issues, and it's a big undertaking with lots of emotions involved. So today we're going to hear all about this in this awesome interview with Kay Cabuco, who is building an 8-figure business and has about 10,000 followers through assisted living. And so if you've ever wondered how to kickstart an assisted living portfolio, or perhaps you have a loved one in or has needs in assisted living and wondering if investing in something like this might make sense for you, this episode is for you. Welcome, Kay. Nice to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Cool. Well, we're excited to chat with you, Kay. And if for those who don't know who Kay is, she is an owner-operator overseeing 82 beds, building a care business with real scale. So she started as a nurse and has grown that hands-on experience into an 8-figure operation. So, Kay, before we jump into like the nitty-gritty stuff, I do want to just do some rapid fire questions to get to know you a little bit more. So the first question is, what is a daily habit that's non-negotiable for you?
That's a funny question because I actually didn't have a really good habit. I just do it. It's just do it messy. That's what I do. Right. And then now I think the one thing that really keeps me going is actually meditation in the morning. And I think that everyone needs that. You need to kind of really slow yourself down. This is a marathon. That's what I found out, because you will get burnt out. So I think, having your self-care and time for yourself is very, very important.
Just a quick question about that. Is it a guided meditation, or do you just kind of sit and
yes
with yourself? Okay.
Oh yeah, it has to be guided meditation. I'm not an expert. I don't know where my brain goes, so I need somebody to tell me where my brain needs to go.
Yes.
Right.
I'm the same way. So
yes.
I tried to sit and just be quiet on your own. I'm thinking about random things.
Yes.
And it just doesn't work.
Yes.
So
will come thousands of thoughts, and that's what we do daily, actually. Right. So
yes. Okay. What is the most underrated skill in your business?
It's a number one. It's a people business. Period. Right. It's almost simple, but yet hard to do, because you have to understand a lot of different personalities. You have to understand how to work with your residents. You have to understand how to work with your residents' families and the dynamics of, the family, and then your staff. So I think that, understanding people is a people business. Treating people right, as simple as that.
Right. Yeah. I feel like you probably got a lot of that skill when you were a nurse too.
Funny enough, no, I didn't. Because when I was a nurse, you clock in, you clock out. Yes, you are. I've always taken care of my patients, and that's all I knew. But understanding now that you're managing someone else, like you kind of expect them to know to do their job. You're like, well, that's your job. You should know that, but they don't. So then you have to understand even more. You have to dig deeper to understand each and every one of your staff, different personality, things like that. So that was actually, I've learned that after obviously acquiring a business and going through a burnt out. And I used to think, well, why don't people just do their job? Isn't that the thing that people do? They clock in and they're supposed to know how to do their job. But yes, I learned that the hard way.
Okay, awesome. What was the most rewarding moment you've had with a resident?
There's a lot, honestly. There's a lot of thing where you've done something good for someone, and when the family comes and crying to you, I just wanted to share even just one of the stories that I've done. I've experienced this patient that came to our facility. They have gone to multiple facilities, but he had like an aggression, but he was the most genuine, kind, according to the family. Because he has dementia, he was a different person. So no one was willing to take him. And for me, it was like when they were crying, like, please just take him. This is not my dad, but I know he's a good person. And for us to be able to take care of that type of, I would say, a difficult case, and the family was just crying just for us to be able to take care of him for the last, even though it was short for him, but it was something that that you're there for the people that really need your service.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. I love that. What is one thing that you see your residents do more of before the end of life?
They love to reminisce and they love to tell stories. And I love that. And like you get the best experience working in this industry because you get to hear these are real stories. These are not, and you get to hear their background, who they used to be, and they reminisce a lot. And then they always tell me, like, if I could relive that, I would have taken that chance instead of like being afraid to be who they wanted to be. But yeah, it's just I think they do a lot of reminiscing the past, reliving that. So, and the thing that they share the most is really don't stress over little things.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, like, it doesn't really matter. So it's something that I take notes and I take it into personal reminders for myself as well.
And what is something you think that people regret not doing before, going into assisted living, or, now that you've met so many, what do you think it's like a common theme?
A common theme that they regret not doing it at their earlier. Yeah, and that's what taking chances. They just always wish that they have done more, or they wish that they have spent more time with family. I think that's the biggest, is actually the families. So, and I think that's the number one thing that I take home a lot is like, I'm doing all of this. We're so busy, and I have young kids, and you guys, and you, Anita, and Ashley, you'll soon. It's like that moment you can never go back to relive their 4-year-old or things like that, that family moment. So I really, really cherish that a lot with my family, and I spend a lot of time with families because of that.
I love that. Okay. Well, let's get into the questions. So give us your story and how you got started in assisted living.
Yes. Okay. So like you all know that I've been a nurse for 8 years, and I never thought about owning a business. And I met my husband on a date, and he was talking about this, like, not even assisted living. I didn't even know this such thing as assisted living. I just knew skilled nursing, which people get them mixed up a lot. So we were on a date, and he was talking about, let's buy a business, like, like laundromat or something like that, right? There's more to life. Let's buy a laundromat. And so we were just looking at businesses ever since then, like to buy any business. We didn't know what, or what kind, or any experience. We were looking to buy any business, and we bought an auto registration business. That was our first business that we bought together, and I didn't have any experience, but I think what that taught me with that business was acquiring an existing business was like a no-brainer. Like, it was already a cash flowing machine. You're buying it and it's already running, and it was like a light bulb because we didn't have enough money. We didn't even have enough money to pay for the down payment, and we didn't know what SBA loan was. We didn't know any of that. Like, we just went for it and like, let's just try this out. And the moment we took all of our savings, his and mine, together, for the down payment, and then some of the seller carry because we didn't have enough. And the moment we closed on escrow, like our bank, we screenshot our bank account. It was like $0, and we had 3 kids, and we're like, oh shit, like what, like what do we do now? We are moving our money, or that's our safety net, and we gave it to this escrow account. And then the very same day, since we closed, the transfer of the money of that business, the revenue, went to our account. I'm like, whoa. Like, it was more than I put it in. Like, what is this, right? It was like a light bulb that went in my head. I'm like, this is so amazing. Why, like, nobody knows about this stuff? Like, not a lot of people were talking about it at the time. Neither have I heard it, right? So that was like a mind shift for me, right? And so we bought another business since then. That one was doing really well, but I kind of miss being a nurse. So I just told my husband, I'm like, who is now my husband, I said, I really miss being a nurse. Like I remember just going in and like just really talking to people, and he's like, well, okay, you can go work as a part-time as a nurse. And I'm like, well, now I don't want to be an employee. I don't want to go and clock in and be an employee. So what is there other things to do? And just somehow this assisted living business popped up. And then we contacted the seller, and just from there, that's where that led me to, like, I just felt like the calling. It had always been my path. I just knew, like, I miss serving people. And especially with the experience from nursing myself, I've received patients from these facilities. And I've always just kind of wondered, just looking at them, like, where did they come from? Like, what type of living condition? Like, what, like the smell, the pressure ulcer, it just really resonated with me. And my goal has always been, if I could be one less bad facility. That's just literally my goal. And that's how that led into this assisted living.
Got it. So I kind of want to just give me like a assisted living 101 about the different sizes, what the size you own, and what are the different kind of assisted living facilities are out there.
Yeah, so assisted living kind of get mixed up with skilled nursing a lot. Assisted living is simply just a group home for seniors. We do non-medical things, helping with showers, so medication, food, cleaning, things like that, right? And I started with what would technically consider residential. It was 2 homes and 1 lot, actually, so it's still under residential, not a commercial building. And they were licensed for 15, and that was our first facility that we got into. But there's also the most common one you'll see, actually, especially in California. 80% of care homes are smaller 6 beds. They're just multiple, one owner made it own 4, 5, 6 locations. And you got the big facilities, big box facilities, like, what's that called? Like, Ivy Park, or other big facilities that you see around.
Okay.
And yeah, so in our second, we kind of stay in I call it the mid tier, or like the mid size, which is above 15, below 75. I think that's where the sweet spot.
Got it. So there's like about more than 75 beds, and then there's the 15 to 75 range, and then the sub 15 range, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so what is, like, you're based in California. What is the realistic startup cost for these 3 different types of facility types?
The cost is really depends. Like, if you mean like to start from scratch, like if you never had a home, then you're gonna have to account for the price of the home. Like, if this is your first time home buyer, you can do house hack, right, for like 3.5%, and or if you have a VA, then you will be 0. Then your cost would only be turning it into ADA compliant, which is a smaller startup cost for a 6 bed, because you just need the railing, smoke alarms. You may add a sliding doors if you wanted to go to a different status for a certain type of resident, but you don't have to, right? So that's smaller startup cost. I would say $10,000 maybe, just to get that, not even, right? But then your furnishing will be about $20,000 to $30,000 for that first home. But if you want to get into the medium size, in terms of constructions, again, that could be a lot, right? Because we're talking about now a huge construction. Typically, these I think, the best way to get into the medium size is to buy an existing. And you can obviously use funding. It's not going to be coming from all of your money. You can use the bank. You can use, usually would be SBA, but there's other kinds of loans that you can use, loan products. They might require more down payment, but SBA typically require 10 to 15% down for the cost, let's say.
Okay. And then for a commercial, I mean, or the larger 75 and above, so it's pretty similar to that sort of mid-tier kind of thing, right?
Yes, it is. Yeah, it's the same as mid-tier, and they were structured kind of the same. And then they fund, obviously, SBA fund building and business together.
Okay. So for most investors, they're mostly chasing doors, but you're chasing beds, and you're saying that might be a better play. So in one sentence, why is assisted living such a powerful wealth strategy right now?
Well, it's, like you kind of get the best of both worlds. I mean, you have a much higher cash flow because it is an active business, but you also have the real estate side that you build equities on top of that, right? It's like you get the best of both worlds. And because it is an active business, I do see over and over again, every time I underwrite, it still outperforms short terms, mid terms, and even multifamily. Like that is no doubt, like the cash flow is there if you want to do let's say a cash flow play, right? But again, you still have the equity that you can tap into and then repeat that and use that to buy your next building, which is what
Got
we're
it.
doing. Yeah.
Awesome. And so what kind of personality do you think in like an assisted living operator is like? Like who is it for and who is it not for?
I'll start with who is not for. Someone who's looking for passive income because it is not passive. Okay, so that's
Not
one. Let's
passive.
get that out. Yeah, it's not passive. I have a lot of yes coming from multifamily. Now, can you get in being the passive partners? Absolutely, but the one thing that you have to make sure is you vet out your operators because that is to make or break it, right? Is your operator 100%? So you can still be passive in terms of not wanting to operate. But for someone who wants to be in and this is what you want to do and you're in it, like you have to have some compassion because there is going to be a lot of, lives that you're taking care of. Like this is not an apartment. You're kind of in the day with them. You know what's their past, you know what their family dynamics, like you kind of get to know some of your residents. Some you might get, attached with some, like you become a family with them. So I think like anyone who's looking for, and it's something that also give you fulfillment as well, right? Like you're doing good and you're also building wealth. Like I can't say any other business. I mean, I'm sure, apartments do that too, but like you really get to know your residents and your staff and you become a different person. And you may not think that this may not be for you, but it could be because it feels good when you're actually doing good and you see the smile on your resident, you see the relief from the family. Like it feels good and while putting your head down.
And so, I mean, just to clarify, I mean, so if you're in a residential facility, do you have full-time staff or is that kind of like a mid-tier commercial tier kind of?
Even the residential one, you should have staffing. They're a little bit more lenient when it comes to like a 6-bed. They're not even required to have a nighttime staff. So technically you don't need it 24 hours, but is that the best practice? It really depends on what type of clients you're bringing in. If they're pretty independent at night, then that's fine, that's safe, right? But eventually when they decline and when your residents need more help, you want to make sure that someone is there, right? So yes, you do need, I would say full-time staff is the best practice, but also having a manager for the house manager or AKA administrator in this industry for the facility is what you don't have to do day to day, every single day, because you can have a manager to run your operation, but you still have to manage your manager, just like multifamily. You guys have property managers, but we still have to manage the property manager to make sure that they are delivering, your expectation.
And where do you kind of find property managers with the particular experience for assisted living?
For medium-sized one, you would have, and I refer to that because you're not going to be able to find a management company for residential. I don't think there is enough profit margin for them to even step in. Even with 6 beds, 6 homes, you probably never have a hard time. 65 and over and up, or even let's say 30, you can probably find one. But at the same time, again, you can just look it up, like assisted living management company. They'll show up, but you still have to get to know them and see their track records, because not everybody going to perform the same. And we see a lot of big buildings actually go upside down because of the management companies, right? So, and that's a really, really important role or important person to find to manage your building. But they're out there to, so that that's another option. But like I said, I do recommend for you to really understand the business yourself, if this is your portfolio that you want to expand, because now you're relying on another company to dictate what that perfect facility should look like, right? Because if you want to manage the management company, you kind of expect, okay, these are the numbers I expect to see. These are the survey I would like to see from your staff, their staff, the staff of the actual staff, and really just kind of understanding the business itself.
Okay.
It's not as passive as like multifamily.
Got it. So can you break down the model for me? So where does the money come from? Is it mostly real estate or is it operations? And how is it? Yeah, we talked about a little bit about a little bit of the differences, but can you break down what the difference is in owning like a regular residential or multifamily home and compare it to assisted living?
Yeah, so the rent comes from, obviously, well, actually, most of the revenue comes from the monthly rent from the residents. And that monthly rent will cover not just rent, but like care, the level of care, food, and all of that, right? And usually when you owned multiple, you would set a different entity for the homes, and you got your active business under a different entity, and you'll rent to the property. But the revenue or the rent, where does it come from? It can come from private pay. So some residents do have savings, stocks and all of that they would pay for that. And that would be the most ideal client. And that's, because every first you get your payment just like an apartment would, right? You get your monthly rent every month. And then there's also Medi-Cal. If you're in California, obviously we call Medi-Cal, but other state would be Medicaid. There's that program. And then also VA also has a program for this as well. So there's other funding sources through the government or private pay. And there's a very small portion now. It's called long-term care insurance. And that's when people used to buy into them. Companies used to offer, but they obviously insurance haven't really been making a lot of money because they have been paying out because our seniors are living longer. So they actually end up paying out these insurance and they're like, we're not offering that anymore, but they still exist. So is also another way that some family members or resident would pay using the long-term care insurance.
Okay. So what does the revenue per bed look like today? What are the margins of a well-run home?
So if you're talking about like per bed, like on average, just kind of nationwide, I would say like 5,000 per month per resident, but it just very, very location specific, and it's very, it's very location and how your facility is run, right? So if you have a really higher end, you can charge more, between $8,000 to $12,000. But if you're just a normal kind of average, and it's usually sits between 55 to 6,500 per month per bed, and a really well run facility should be expecting between 30 to 35% profit margin. So that's where really sitting at. And then the bigger you go, actually in the 100 beds and up, they tend to have a smaller profit margin, 22, 25. That's probably what you'll see commonly because of the, first of all, the management company. And also you have a higher role, like let's say ED, executive director, which you didn't need before. And now you need a manager for your chef. And then you got your manager for your housekeeping when you didn't need that additional person to oversee that. So the profit gets cut, right? Even more so the bigger you go. And you would think that it was a bigger profit margin, but I think that's a long-term play, more like an equity play for the facility, the actual property itself.
Okay, so and if you had to do it today, would you? There's obviously different strategy on how to get in. Would you buy something new? Would you convert, or you're building from the ground up? What is the smartest approach you think people getting into this year?
So I think that the smartest is obviously acquiring an existing. And the reason why is if you start from scratch, it's like, yes, you can customize it, build it the way you want, but then it takes a longer time. I'm more like instant gratification kind of person. Like I want to see results, right? Like I don't know if I want to sit here building 2 to 3, and it does take about that amount of time, like 2 to 3 years to build and get it up and running and becoming profitable. Maybe we'll add another 6 months to a year on top of that, right? Because you have some time to build up the business. It's almost like a startup. And buying existing, it's like, okay, they've been there for a while. There's a track record. You can do a market research. Most of the time, these facilities are owned by baby boomers themselves, right? And they are getting ready to retire. Most of the time, it's underperforming. So that's your value add right off the bat. And then the building itself is probably going to be looking a little like your seniors too, like like they need some little help, so you can get both. Like you see, you can optimize the operation and then do a little cosmetic, and then now you get both. Like you can build equity so much quicker on the ones that's already existing, right? So that's my personal preferred method, is to actually acquire an existing.
So, in order for you to get an SBA loan or whatever loans that are available, do you have to also have a certain occupancy for assisted living, just like multifamily too?
It depends. I know that technically they said they would even fund on the pro forma or the expected, revenue. But to get to that, like you must have already had multiple deals with them, and they see your track record. They see that you have, then they would accept that. But there is they have that to be able to accept that. Most of the time, if you don't have experience and it's underperforming, they would still fund it, but they're going to have to come up with a higher down payment, right? So it still would be possible. You just have to come up with more than just the typical 10-15%.
Cool. Well, now I want to just dive into more of some of the challenges that you see in kind of your day-to-day business. And so, what would you say is the hardest part of this business that people underestimate?
It's probably staffing. I think that's, I think is obvious. It is a labor intensive, really. You finding the right staff, finding the right people, and building that culture is the most challenging part. Again, you're dealing with a lot of different personalities, and I would consider myself a little bit more lenient. Let's say I don't fire people just because they call out more than they really should. I'm all about retaining them longer, right? Because if I hire somebody else, it's like we're starting new. We're not even sure that person's going to work. But if I know that this is a good caregiver and they have family emergency, everybody have family emergencies. So as long as their performance shows when they're here, I tend to be really forgiving, because it's, again, when I said people, it's a people business. When you treat your staff properly and, with compassion, they carry that on, and that's your product. Really, you can think of any, businesses or items, like that's your product. Well, your staff is your product. They're going to carry your name. They're going to carry your brand. They're going to carry that culture that it instill in them, so that they can carry that on to your residents. The hardest part, again, is retaining your staff, and like I said, I really try to understand more of that different personality. Like I said, my first facility, when I took over, I didn't understand how to retain staff. There was a high turnover because, like I said, I was expecting them to know their job. That's their job description. That's why they apply for it. Like, why aren't you don't know how to do your job? And I learned, I'm like, okay, I understand now. Like, I have to be very clear in the training. Hey, this is how you do this. And it kind of like a follow up if they need support. Like, my job is to support them. And if they feel supported, appreciated, right, and understanding, they most likely will stay with you for longer. And sometimes even, it is common that they will leave you for $1, but they won't, because you treat them better, because you're the better owner. Like, and I see that a lot in other facilities, you get burnt out and they want to quit. I don't want that for them. So I wanted to always, and I spend time, and I almost know all of my staff problems more than I really should, but I do. I go and listen to them and just make sure that they're heard. And I really mean when I said we have an open door policy, like you come in and let me know what is the problem and see if I can help, and when you can have a staff and you treat them right, and when it comes to residents too, because you have a lot of liabilities with your residents, your clients, your families, when you have the right staff that are willing to do the work and then follow your protocols, they will be happy. And when you do the opposite, then obviously the result will, this is when people, and I've seen way too many where it's just all about numbers and they would cut corners, and then the resident gets neglected, they fall more often, they get hurt, and then there's that other liabilities that comes with that. And that's how people get burnt out and quit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you mitigate? So you mentioned burnout a couple times, just not only for your staff, but probably for you as a business owner. How do you mitigate burnout? One for your staff and then for yourself.
Like I said, I am not very strict when it comes to scheduling, as long as one rule is, I said, if you're going to request off, that's fine. You need to find your buddy. Like, that's why I said, like, this is your team. Like, that's your team. And if you want to take off this time, make sure you cover them next time. And then because we all understand that we have family emergencies. So covering for each other, that's having each other's back. So that prevents that part, right? And for me, with my staff, I'm very hands-on still. If we have difficult situation, if it's like back to back to back, then I'll be like, okay, let me take over for a little bit so you can take a break, and vice versa. And sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm just not. And my husband, he's more of the back end compliance, but like when we have really difficult situation, I'm like, your turn, tag, you're it. So we take turns, and I really try to pay attention to the actual population that I have. We get it that we're going to have sometimes either disease process or could be personality, and we have difficult clients. If I keep just adding multiple because all I care about is revenue, then who's going to get burnt out are my staff. So I really watch on who I have now before I can even just keep adding, which I could have, right? But I would choose rather not, and then we'll fix the current problem and we can add more later. So usually I always kind of look at the population and the issue at hand without trying to go and add more.
Right. Yeah. You mentioned that it's a people business and a relationship business, and I'm involved in an assisted living facility myself, and I think one of the really notable things was when we were purchasing the assisted living facility, it was run by this woman. It was like a mom and pop shop, right? And so she was the vibe. She was the sunshine that walked into the room every single time. And she had those good relationships with her residents, and everyone knew who she was. And uh, the one of the really important things for us was we need to how do we carry this sunshine forward, right? And make sure that the residents still feel comfortable even though there's a transition. So I love hearing from you that there's this passion behind you, and that you really care about everyone that you work with, not only the staff but the residents and stuff. And I think that's probably a factor that just makes you more successful than any other operator
That's 100% yes. And
Yeah.
like I said, just keep it simple. Like when you treat people right, I almost want to say it's almost fail proof. Like you can't fail when you really genuinely want to treat them right and take care of them, right? And I just, like I said, feel honored to be able to do this job. I don't really get burnt out like much doing this. I really enjoy doing what I do, but I can definitely see, that it is a lot of work. It is a lot of moving pieces. And what I was going to say, when you need that sunshine, because that one statement that I've heard a few times, they go to an assisted living and they call it a waiting room. And I was like, what's a waiting room? Well, I'm waiting to go.
Oh man.
And I'm like, oh no, I don't want that to be for you. We're not
Yeah.
waiting. We're going to party. We're going to do things here. So I try my best. Like I go out of my way to get them up. They hated for getting out because the less they move, the more they don't want to move.
Right.
So you almost have to start to push them to get out the room. Like, I don't care. You need to be out most of the time, most of the day. They are spending their time outside their rooms to do something to keep them going.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay. I love that. So this is like, again, talking about challenges. I think one of the first challenges that we saw when we took over the assisted living is sometimes, I mean, you talked about private pay, whereas the family pays for the resident, and one of the families had a hardship and they couldn't continue to pay. And so, in multifamily, you're like, well, if you don't pay, you don't stay, right? It's just clear cut. But I think in this business, there's the morality or the ethical kind of, emotional side to it where it's like, well, I don't want to kick this resident out because he or she needs these services. And so, um, can you talk about maybe a situation where you came across something like this, and how did you kind of, overcome that challenge?
Yeah, no, definitely that's gonna happen in multifamily or in this one, because that, let's face it, right? Like, no one has unlimited money to pay for $6, $7, $8,000 per month, and I see that more often than not, actually. And luckily for California, actually has a program that I try to connect them to. So there were quite a few incidences that I did have to I did not have to, I didn't evict them per se, but there are processes that you have to go through. You have to notify licensing that you're planning on evicting them. That's first step. And then you go through the eviction process like a normal, actually. Surprisingly, it is a normal process on that side, but the additional step is to let them know. But you're right, but there's that, that ethical side, the, like the compassion, like where would they go? Really, where would they go? And a lot of them don't even have families. In your case, you had families. I have my own experience where they didn't have anywhere to go. So with that case, I kind of took that on myself. One of them, I was able to connect them with the California program and got her funded, and she was able to go there and paid for by the state. The other two, I kind of ate the cost. Like I said, I didn't step into the business to evict people. That I kind of go in knowing that this is what's going to be something that may come up, and I was willing to serve people. Now, I'm not going in to just serve everybody, because we have to pay our staff and the overhead costs, right? But the reality is that could happen, and it will happen, just a matter of when. So like I said, for this, I feel like for me, it made me feel good that I could help them stay with us, and we provided until they both passed. Actually, I did take the loss, but like I said, it was something that, to me, it was a personal charity. I've always wanted to do charity work, and that was like, I get to do both. But I don't obviously advertise that, because we don't have a deep pocket to help everybody. But the goal is, again, is to make sure that you do well so that your business can run. And when this incident happens, we can absorb the loss.
Right. Okay. Another question. So you mentioned private pay versus, like, I guess, government subsidized. So do you do private pay, or do you do like a blend of both?
I do a blend of both, and
Mhm.
here's why. Like I said, our seniors are living longer past, 70s, like 80, 90. So they have savings for first 5, 10 years, but now they live
Mhm.
past that. Now what? That's actually the real need. That's actually the real problems. I can advertise the boutique style, right? And that's great, but your beds aren't always going to be filled, because not everybody have that unlimited money. The real guys are the blue collars. Not that,
Mhm.
because there have always been, what's the word? Like not that they never had money, they just ran out of money.
Mhm.
That's like a very common situation. So that's really the people who have worked their whole lives, and they deserve to be cared for. And luckily for us in California, there's that program to help seniors, continue to stay in these facilities, because they're not safe to go home.
Right.
Yeah. So I mix both, and I know that it kind of gets a bad rep where you're like, you get what you pay for. You have to
Mhm.
cut corners and whatnot, just because they pay less. You don't have to. When you come into my facility, you can't tell who's paying private and who's paying like funded, like subsidized, because you can clean them up. You can treat them the same. You don't have to treat them different just because the funding is different. Yeah. So that's what really, like I said, I see it just like my mom too. Like if I didn't have to, if she would need it one day, like if just based on her income, would she be able to afford it? Absolutely not. And there's a lot of people like my mom.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So last question here is just kind of talking about the emotional undertaking. So we talked about different challenges in the business, but I think there's a lot of kind of emotional preparedness that you need to have in order to get into the business. And so what was kind of like the biggest shift when you were a nurse and then shifting into now a business owner and an operator?
Yes, that was a fun realization because I thought I'm gonna get to be the boss, but that's not a boss. Like I just became like, what do you call myself now? Not a CEO, but CAO, right? Chief Accountability Officer. You're just, your job is to hold people accountable, and your job isn't really a boss. It's more of support. You're
Mm.
the support person.
Mhm.
That's the biggest mind shift for me. And if I can't support them to do their job, then they're not going to be able to do their job. So yes, that's me shifting into that mindset and learning better on my skills so that I can lead with skills and not just expectations.
Right. Yeah. And I think the other thing too is, as a nurse, you clock in, you clock out. You know when to turn off the nursing hat
Oh
or
yeah.
take off the nursing hat. But as a business owner, you're now like probably wearing the hat to bed and in the shower and all that stuff as a business owner. And so, how do you kind of, you know, deal with life that comes, right? Your kids and things like that. And then how do you balance like the business and then how do you balance the family?
So I kind of incorporate the family life into the business life. I almost want to say that I probably celebrate all my holidays, Christmas, Thanksgiving at the facilities, and I will be at both of, and I would try to go to as many as I can. And that's one that what we do. We bring our kids along. And I know this may look a little unprofessional because you're bringing your kids, but you know what? The residents love it. They love it. They love the lively, the kids, the sound. Some of them never had visitors, and we bring our family over. So that's what I really like about, owning your own business is that you can do that. And I don't really care if I look professional. I just love the smile on the residents' faces, and that's all I care about. And I also allow my staff to bring their kids. So it's like a more of a family environment, right? And for at the beginning, first year, of course, I was definitely wearing all the hats, like obsessed with perfection coming from a nurse. Like, oh, well, they shouldn't have fallen. Why did they fall? I used to drive at 2 a.m., 4 a.m. in the morning, and I even stayed at the facility just to make sure. And I was so burnt out. And I, started like really almost like feeling regret. Like, is that even the right decision? Why did I even do that? And understanding really to set boundaries for yourself. Like, okay, let's set up a protocols. What worked? What didn't work? How do we prevent that? I always look at every issues and like just looking back, like how can we do that better so that this doesn't happen? Or if it does happen, what do we do next? So having those protocols is so important, and that's what really saved me. And then your manager, just like a management company, right? Your manager is your literally that person is so important. And I believe in compassion more than credentials. I have tried hiring out someone who already had an experience as a manager, and they're like, I know the thing. They come in and it was really underperforming, right? But then I actually like to train up and promote someone who has the compassion, the initiation, and the trustworthiness that they are going to carry that, like your culture and your alignment, your values. So both of my facilities are very semi-absentee because of these two very important individuals. They're so compassionate about caring for people, and they just lack the skills. And I just show them, this is what we do, this is how we do it. And I even say, hey, this is a training, this is how we talked, like how we respond to other staff or how we respond to families. So all of these trainings, I've trained my manager to do that. It's almost like I'm molding it into exactly how I want. It may take a little longer time, but in the end, like I said, I can take my foot off the gas and I don't have to wear all the hats all the time because of that. So that's the investment that I put in up front.
Love that. Yeah, it's kind of like you want to hire people who also act like owners, right? And who treat the business like it's their own business. And I think those are things that are hard to teach at sometimes,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so, but the technical skills and all that stuff is, you can teach that, but like that secret sauce is hard to find. And you're right. I think some of the credentials, it could be a long list of credentials, but if you don't have that secret sauce, it might not work. So
Right. Absolutely.
cool. Well, we are at the end, and I wish I have tons of more questions, but we'll save it for another time. So, Kay, I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today. Um, I think just like the biggest takeaway is just, in order to be successful in this business, it's the compassion, right? It's like, it's not just another business that you can run, but you have to come in with the compassion and the passion, right?
Yes.
You came in from, missing nursing and being able to care for people. And I think that's really what helped you be successful and grow so quickly. And then I think the other piece is just like, it is a people business more than a lot of other businesses, because it's very staff heavy, around the clock care and stuff like that. So I think for people thinking about getting into this business, I think those are two like hard requirements.
Yes.
Be okay with
Non-negotiable.
yeah,
Yes.
non-negotiable, right? It's like be okay with working with different personalities, different people, and then having the compassion and passion in this business, I think, is really what will make you successful. So it's okay if people want to get in touch with you. What's the best way for people to get in touch?
Yes, you could find me on Instagram is Kay Cabuco. That's really where I'm mainly active. You can book a call, or you can just send me a message through there if you have any further questions.
Cool. Yeah, and you create a lot of good content for people who want to get into this business. I think her Instagram would be a good start to just creep on a
Yeah.
little bit and learn a little bit more about what you do and stuff.
Yes.
So, all right. Well, Kay, again, thanks for joining us. If this episode resonated, share it with a friend and leave us a review. It will help us reach more people. And we will see you next time on the SARE Ladies Podcast.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the SARE Ladies Podcast. If you enjoyed the conversation, make sure to follow, share, and leave us a review. It helps more women in real estate find this community. And don't forget to connect with us at sareladies.com for more resources, stories, and support on your investing journey. Until next time, keep building, keep learning, and keep breaking barriers.